Okay, welcome everyone. In this video, we are going to wrap up our discussion of functions. We're going to finish working with this Colab notebook on functions. And so we've been working with writing our own functions in R. And so far, the functions that we've been writing have been generating and printing just a single calculation to the screen. And what I want to talk about is how we can write a function that returns a list of results to the screen. So for example, we've seen like the summary output of the summary function, which say takes a data frame and calculates a summary for every variable in that data frame. And that summary, if we have a numeric variable, like calculated the maximum value, the minimum value, the median value, the mean value, and the 5-number summary for each quantitative variable. So it summarized, it gave a whole bunch of summary for each quantitative variable. So I want to think about how we could do something similar, but maybe pare that down a little bit. So let's consider the following function. It takes x as an input, where x is some numeric variable, and the summary output that we want to return to the screen is going to be the mean of x and the sample standard deviation of x. And we've got built-in functions in R that can calculate each of these things. So we're going to call this function mySummary, and we're going to define this function. This is going to be a function of one input, this numeric vector x, and it's going to calculate two things. The mean we're going to store to this object we call m, and we've got a built-in function in R that will calculate that for us. That's just going to be calculated using the mean of x. And the standard deviation we're going to store in this object we call s. And to calculate that, we're just going to apply the SD function, the standard deviation function built into R. This calculates the sample standard deviation of x. And now to return a list, we're going to tell this function, here's what you're going to return. And inside of parentheses next to return, we're going to say you're going to return a list. And then inside of the list, we're just going to list out the things that we're going to return. So the first thing we're going to return is going to be something we call m. And m is going to equal this object that stored in m. And here we could call, these don't need to have the same name. So here I can call this mean, and here I can call this like something different. I just called this with a double M just to separate, not make a distinction between the function mean. So the first thing in my list is called like mean, and that is going to equal M. The second thing is called the standard deviation, and that I'm setting equal to S. So this just defines my function. And now I'm going to apply that function to the sample that I have in birth weight. And so if you are just opening up this Colab notebook, it's linked in the description of this video. You might not have run the code cell where this vector was stored. So this was done way back up in question 1C. So you will need to run this code cell here to create this vector. This vector was created with this command. So you're going to want to run this command to create this birth weight vector. You don't need to necessarily set the seed to get the same exact output that I have. But if you want to get consistent output, you can do that. But once you've got this birth weight vector created, then you're good to come back here and run mySummary. And now you can see this is telling us what the mean and the standard deviation for the birth weight are. And if you generated a different random sample, then your values will be a little bit different, and that's totally fine. if you only want, so say you've got this summary function, sometimes you have these functions that can return like 50 different things and you don't want all of them. You just want to get one bit of information from this summary function. So say, for example, all you want to do is get the mean. Then one way that you can do that would be to type the name of the thing that is that the object that you want to get at. So like the first thing in our list was called mean with two m's, just to differentiate it from the mean function. So one way I can figure out what the mean is I can put a $sign like we do with data frames and then type the name of the calculation that we want to access. I could do that with the standard deviation as well. And that pulls off the standard deviation. Another way that I could pull off each of these individual things is by indexing. So this is a list. And so I can say pull off the first thing in the list by indexing with square brackets. And here, the way that we index this list is a little bit different than the way that we kind of indexed with the vector that we saw in our previous module on indexing. I have a set of square braces, but inside the set of square braces, rather than just put a 1 to say pick off the first thing, I put that 1 instead of another set of square braces. So I have two sets of square braces here with a 1 inside of it. So this says pull off the first thing in my list, and that pulls off the mean. If I want to get the second thing in my list, then I put the 2 inside of two sets of square brackets. And that gives me the second thing in my list. So that's how you can create a function that returns a list of values. We can run that function to take a look at the entire list of outputs. And it's also possible to slice the output and extract just individual parts of the output or subsets of those outputs if we're not interested in looking at the full list of the output. So that's a combination of functions as well as kind of slicing the list in order to take a look at a subset of the output. Okay, so that's a break. That's an end on this module on functions. And that's a wrap for this notebook. Thanks, everybody.